Welcome to toy-polloi. Parental guidance. This video contains scenes of Lego destruction.
Hello and welcome to another video from toy-polloi, and in today's video we're going to be restoring this vintage Bionic Man transport and repair station. Now, I was recently given one of these by a fellow fusion writer and editor, Alan. He very kindly sent the remains of one that he had and the remains of a box, and I thought it'd be quite a fun project to work on. I really remember playing with one of these as a kid, but it's not something I've ever owned, so it'll be a fun project for me to learn all about this toy and work out how it works, and I'll sort of work out what needs fixing. So let's take a closer look at the one that Alan sent me, and we'll see what needs to be done. So here it is. This is pretty much what I got in the post from Alan. It did come, as I say, with the remains of a box, but that is really in quite a terrible state, so I'm not going to bother trying to fix that in today's video. But this was the sort of the main part that he sent me. It didn't include Steve Austin. That's one I've just put in there for the moment. It's a great looking toy because in this state, in its sort of transport state, it looks a bit like the Saturn V rocket, and I think that's why I sort of enjoyed playing with it as a child. As I say, I didn't have one, but there was a playgroup or a sort of preschool thing that I went to, and there was one of these in the box of toys that you could play with, and so I remember playing with it there. This one, as I say, is missing quite a few parts, and I think there are a few sort of issues that we need to fix on it. So let's open it up. You can see at the moment this is at the rocket stage. We're missing the nose cone at the end, but as you saw in the initial part of the video, I do actually have one of those. I've got a few spares now, and for those I'll be telling you about them during the video, but this one will need that nose cone. It has these sort of rocket boosters on the bottom that you can unclip, and when you do that you can open up this station. Ooh, if I open it up the right way like that, and you see we've got Steve Austin inside, and this is the sort of repair section of it. As you can see, we're missing lots of stickers. In fact, lots of stickers are coming away. There are lots of parts missing and a few things I want to fix. If we turn this round here, you can see that there is this sort of computer terminal where you can turn these dials. We're missing one dial, and this middle dial doesn't work, so that will need fixing. If I open this up here as well, you can see there's a baggie with a whole load of bits. This is not all of the pieces that are needed for this toy, so we are going to have to source some. We're also going to make some, because there are these tiny little sort of connector pieces here that are, I've got a few of them, a few are missing, and there's a different sort that is missing, so I'm going to be making those from scratch. The toy itself is really dirty, lots of grime on it, lots of sticker residue as well, so we've got to give it a clean. That's the first thing I want to do. All of the stickers are sort of put on in the wrong place or missing, so that is something I want to do as well. Generally, just give this thing a bit of love and attention and make it look really nice again. But first off, we are going to have to clean it, and before we can do that, I actually want to take it apart. So let's remove Steve Austin, and we can get it into its sort of component parts. There are 3 parts to this main section, and they're all held together by these little clips here. Now, these clips are often broken. Luckily on this one they are not broken, but I do have some others, so I will also show you how to fix those. But what we have to do is unclip these, and you basically have to sort of push a little bit of blue plastic. There's 2 sort of bits of blue plastic either side, and you sort of push those and pull it at the same time. It's sort of awkward. I'll rearrange my camera and I'll show you what I'm doing there. We also need to remove this section. We can just unclip that because the dials in this are made out of paper, and I don't want to get those wet, so I'm going to remove those. And then we've got these other little knobs and pieces that we don't want to lose, so we'll just take those out first, and then let's try and split this into its 3 main parts. I've now rearranged my camera so you can see these clips are a little bit clearer. So this is the bottom section of the middle piece, and these clips are held in place just by a piece of plastic sort of pushing apart. So all you need is a screwdriver. You can push this in the back like that, push these down, and then a little bit of jiggling and wiggling later and it will pop out. This is easier to show off camera because it's sort of manhandling things as we go, but you can see, there we go, just like that, it is unclipped. So I've got to unclip at least the other 4 of these on this panel, and then we'll have 3 separate pieces that we can easily wash. But yeah, with the camera in the way, everything gets a little bit more difficult. It is possible. So there you go, that was 1 clip done, and you'll end up with these little clips here. You can remove them completely if you want. I'm not going to bother in this instance, but if you want to remove them completely, just take your screwdriver, push on that piece, and then lift these up. There you go, and that's the clip removed. Now this is the front from the one that Alan gave me, and you can see there is a crack in the front here on the sort of the perspex bit where you see Steve Austin through. It's also pretty scratched. I have a couple of these, as you saw in the intro, and this one is in much better condition. There's no crack, and the perspex is nice and clear. So what I'm actually going to do is swap them out. So I'll put this one to one side and we'll be using this one. They're in much the same condition, quite dirty with lots of sort of sticker residue on them, but I think it's probably just easiest to use this one, because when you turn this over, the perspex bit is held in at the bottom with a clip, but at the top it's held in by a little rivet there and some glue. And you can see this one is, I would say, broken at some point, so someone has glued that and sort of, yeah, I think that must have been glued. If you look at this one, it's just held in with a tiny rivet, but I think trying to get that out would cause quite a lot of damage, because you have to drill that rivet out. So in this instance, I'm just going to use an alternative one, save myself some time. So now all of these pieces need a good wash. I'm going to take them downstairs to my sink and use some hot soapy water and a toothbrush to get into all the sort of nooks and crannies and give them a good clean. Any sticker residue that's left, you can see there's quite a lot of sort of marks on here. I will be using some lighter fluid to remove that. But the first thing always with these toys, give them a good clean. After a good clean, everything looks a whole lot better. I managed to clean the nose cone quite well. This had quite a lot of wear to it. I'm guessing because it's at the front of the sort of the rocket part of the ship, kids sort of bash this against the wall, so there's a lot of wear. It's not quite the same colour as the other blue pieces I have. You can see it's slightly faded, but you know, the overall effect is it's pretty good, so I'm happy with that. Now, the only problem I sort of come across with this is because I've put everything in water and sort of actually dunked it in water, where the clear glass part goes, or this clear perspex glass goes on the inside, there's a piece that you can't actually get inside, so you can see there's a little bit of water left in there. I'm just going to let this dry naturally. There's no way of actually getting in there to dry it, so it's, you know, it's just a little bit of an annoyance, but that will dry in time, so we'll leave that and just let it dry naturally. I've also removed what remaining stickers there were. There were just a couple of stickers on the top part of this back section, so I've removed those. We're going to be replacing all of the stickers on this afresh, so we'll do that later. So now everything here doesn't have any stickers on it, and it's ready to go. And I think the first thing we should do is sort out the computer panels and the computer discs that go here. So this is the computer section of the repair station, and there's supposed to be 3 discs here that attach to these little plastic knobs, and you can then turn them around to show which sort of part of Steve Austin needs repairing. They appear through these little panels. There is this blue piece of plastic which until recently I wasn't quite sure what it did. I actually asked around, and it was only by asking around that someone said this blue panel goes underneath where the little knobs go and makes the knob sort of click into place. You can see there's a hexagon shape on the bottom, so when you push these into place you can hear them actually click as it turns around, so it means that all of these little bits of text line up. What's happened on this one is the discs, this middle one has got a bit damaged, so when you put it onto this thing and turn it, it doesn't actually turn. You can see it turns freely because the hexagon hole in the bit of paper has worn away, so we need to repair that. I was missing one of these discs, and I do have to say a massive thank you at this point to Lawrence from Toy Planet UK. He's given me a whole load of parts for this restoration, so all of the parts that I were missing he had, and he had that missing disc, and here it is. Now obviously some people are going to find it hard to get these discs, so what I've done is actually scan these in and made a new file, a Photoshop file that you can download for free from toy-polloi.com, and you'll be able to print your own, print them onto I would say print them onto matte paper, and then attach that to card and cut them out, and that will be a way for making the discs if you are missing them. But as I have this disc, I thought it would be fun to have a go at repairing it. I quite like working on paper pieces like this, so I think we're going to have to stick something on the back to reinforce that and make it work. But let's do that, and then we can test everything once it's done. So what has happened to this disc is that over the years it's just been played with rather a lot, and because this is made out of a very thin card, the edges of the hexagon part have worn away to make it more of a circle. So when you put it over this knob here and turn the knob, basically that knob sort of freely moves in the middle of it. If I put this onto one that hasn't worn away, and you can see that this actually sort of holds in place quite nicely. So when you turn this, it turns the piece of paper as well. So what we've got to do is sort of remake the middle section of this, and to do that I've just got some very thin card. This is really thin card, slightly thicker than paper. If you buy white sheets of printer paper or the sort of sticky back sheets that I use for printing, often there'll be one piece of this in the back of the pack just to give it some rigidity. It's worth keeping because it's very useful. So we're going to use this to give this disc a little bit of strength. To do that, I'm going to take one of the discs that isn't damaged. If I didn't have a disc that wasn't damaged, then I would print out the file that I've created, as I say, that's on toy-polloi.com. But I've got this one that works, and I'm going to carefully just sort of draw inside it with a pencil so that we can see exactly where that original hexagon shape should be, like that. Then I can cut that out just using a scalpel or a knife, and then once we have that, I will take the original disc and I'll stick it onto this card, making sure it lines up with the new hexagon shape that we've drawn, and I will stick this on using some EVA glue so that it's nice and firmly held in place. Then we can cut around it and we'll have a disc that should have a new piece in the middle that will fit on this quite nicely. So first thing we've got to do is now cut this out. So I've got my knife here, I will cut this as neat as I can, and then we'll stick this piece on. With the card now glued onto the back of that, this works quite well. I can see that it's nice and firmly held on the knob, so if we put this in the middle section, I can clip it in place and it will turn, and it actually turns the disc. The disc is not going anywhere. So we can now put the other two discs back in place. They go in a specific order. You can see they have numbers on them. So we've got number 1 here, so that goes on the left hand side. I don't think they need to go in any particular order, as in one on top of the other, because the bit that you read is always at the bottom here. So where they overlap in the middle, it doesn't actually matter that much. So we can just put this one in place. I'll rotate it around till it clicks through that piece of plastic, like so. And then we put number 3 in this side, like so. And then we can put this panel over the top, and as I say, the little bit of text comes through these holes that you see there. You can change which holes it comes through by sliding that little slider. So if we slide that over, it's quite a clever idea. It works remarkably well. You get different bits of text. So you can see here we've got computer feedback A-OK. If we rotate the middle one, it'll say computer signal A-OK. They all sort of line up quite nicely. So that one, computer signal ready. If we slide this slider, we get to the top one. So it's hand diagnosis A-OK. We can twist these, so I, and then it's power unit faulty. It tells you all sort of different things going on with Steve Austin. I think it's a very nifty little feature, and for the sort of era that this was made back in 1975, it's really quite clever. As you can see, that is now all working, so we can move on to the next thing that needs fixing. The next thing I need to sort out is these tiny little blue connectors. Now the set comes with 6 of these plastic tubes, and into the end of those there are 2 different types of connector that you can push. One type is this one, which has a little cross piece on one side and a little peg on the others. I've got quite a few of those. This set originally came with 10 of those, and you can see those push into the ends like that, and then the cross pieces actually attach to other parts of the set. So you can see here, this is the X-ray unit where you can see different X-rays of Steve Austin's head, and these pieces sort of click into those holes, and you could wire it up to make it look like he's doing something, or you can change the way this is working, and they also plug into other parts of the set. And there was another one of these little posts which has this little peg on both sides, and the reason for that is, if we roll up Steve Austin's arm here, you can see I have a spare arm. The Bionic chips, you could actually plug these tubes into the Bionic chip, so that little peg fits neatly in there, and the idea was the other bit of the peg would fit into the other end of this tube. Now those I've not been able to find, and I've seen a few people on eBay selling them, but they're really quite expensive, so I thought I would make my own. And again, having a look through my boxes, I always go to Lego, and I found I've got these blue Lego aerials or antennas. I'll put the number at the bottom of the screen because all Lego pieces have numbers, and these just happen to fit very nicely in the hole there on the Bionic chip, and they also fit quite neatly into the plastic tube like the original pegs do here. So I've quickly just made a little prototype to see if it would work, and here is my prototype. So you can see there's a little bit of the Lego aerial there and a piece of plastic around the edge of it, but that should fit in there, and then we can plug that into Steve Austin's arm like it would have done originally. So we need to make a few more of those so that we can actually get this set working. Again, the set would have come with 10 of those. I'm not going to make 10 of them, I'm just going to make a couple. The other idea with these is that you could actually connect two pieces of the plastic tubing together if you wanted a longer piece of tubing. So it's like a little connector piece like that. They're actually fairly straightforward to make, and it turns out I can also make these ones with the cross piece as well, because not only is that Lego piece very useful, I've often shown as well on my channel pieces of a toy called Connects, these Connects rods, and they come in all sorts of different colours. I've used these to repair bits of Star Wars vehicles, and I just happen to have a little blue one here, and that, as luck would have it, is exactly the right size again for these little holes here on the main parts of the playset. So we're going to use that to make one of these ones with the neck. So let's get cutting. We'll chop up these bits of Lego and we'll make some of these little connectors. The first thing we need to do to make these little pegs is actually to make the disc bit in the middle. For that I'm using some 2mm styrene sheet. You can get this from most model shops. This is just an offcut I happen to have. I try to reuse as much as I possibly can, so when I'm making things, any small pieces like this I tend to put in a bag because it's always useful to have extra pieces just for sort of making small items like this. What I've done is I've measured the diameter of the original disc, which using my ruler here I can see it's about 9mm, and I just happen to have this bit of a pen lid which happens to be about 9mm. So all I've done is I've drawn around that with a pencil, and I've now got these two little circles that I need to cut out. So to do that I'm going to use some plastic nippers. I'm going to sort of roughly go around the edges of them, and then I'm going to use a file to file it down till it is perfectly round. After a few minutes work, you can see I've now got these two little 9mm discs. They're not looking too bad. They're not perfectly round, but they're as round as I can make them. Now what we've got to do is drill a hole in the middle. Now I know from experience that these Lego antennas are 3mm in diameter, so I have a 3mm drill bit here, and I'm going to drill holes straight the way through it, because the one that I really need to make is the one with the posts going right the way through, so we can just put that through and glue it in place. For the ones like this with a little cross on, I can still insert the little rod in there, and that will give it a bit of extra strength before we put on the cross piece. So both of them will need the holes drilling through. So as I say, 3mm drill bit in my pin vise, and I'll just drill these holes through. So you can see I've now managed to get two little holes through the middle. They're starting to look a little bit like polo mints. What I've done now is cut off a small piece of the Lego antenna. This is 13mm long, and all we've got to do is push that through the hole, and we will now have a piece that looks remarkably like the original little $6 Million Man piece. So there's one of them. And you can see what I've made is a pretty good match. We will paint this in the end. I'm actually also going to put a bit of plastic weld around this to stick the two pieces together. Plastic weld works very well with Lego and styrene, so that's one piece that we needed to make. For the one with the X, I've cut a slightly smaller piece of the Lego antenna. I've actually cut about 8mm, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to insert that halfway through, so we've basically got half of the other one. I will again plastic weld that in place, and then we can get to cutting up the Connects rod and start sort of making the final part of that shape, and then we'll paint it. So I'm going to get a bit of plastic weld, we'll attach these all together, and then we can move on to the next stage. So a little bit of plastic weld on a paintbrush, just rub that around the join there. I'll turn it over just to make sure that I get both sides equally, and that will glue up quite nicely and join a very firm bond. I'll do the same on this one. I think I've drilled the hole slightly too large on that one, so it's just a little bit loose, but that's fine. By the time this goes in, that will join it all together quite firmly. So we just let that set and we can get the connect rod prepped. So for the connect rod, I've already cut off the end of it. You can see when you get connect rods, they have this sort of round piece at the end. If you cut that away, you end up with a little cross section like this, and that does fit quite snugly in these holes that are on the other parts of the playset. So what we've got to do is cut off a small amount of this. So all I'm going to do is measure this so we can see that is just slightly under 5mm. I've got a razor saw here, which is a very thin saw. It's very good for cutting things like this. So I'm going to put the connect stick on a piece of wood, and then I'm going to cut off 5mm of the end of it. This is much easier to do than using a pair of plastic nippers if you want a nice neat edge on something larger than sort of a thin piece of plastic. So use one of these. All of the tools that I use I tend to list on the tool shop section of toy-polloi.com, so go there and you'll see everything that I use and all of the things that I've used in this video. So with that small piece cut, we can now plastic weld that onto the other part that we've already made. And you'll see that we end up with something that looks, again, remarkably like that little piece of plastic from the playset. So just a small amount of plastic weld onto the bottom of that will start it sticking. I can position it neatly. Make sure everything is lined up. And I'll put a little bit more plastic weld on just to sort of make sure it is fully stuck. We'll let that dry and then we can get painting. There you go. So these don't stand out, I'm going to paint the white plastic blue. I've got some Vallejo model colour paints here. This is Andrea blue. I think it's about the right sort of shade. It's not going to match the Lego pieces particularly well, but it will match the others. And when these are actually plugged in, you don't see the Lego pieces or the bits of connect. So let's just put a bit of this Andrea blue on. We'll let that dry. I might put a top coat on it as well, just a clear top coat, just to make it a little bit sort of sturdier. But I think that will end up making these look quite nice. Yeah, that's not bad. I've got a bit on the Lego there, I'm not going to worry too much about that. As you can see, that's not a perfect match, but I think the overall effect is pretty reasonable, and it will mean that this toy is actually fully workable again, because without these little pegs you can't actually connect the tubes to Steve Austin's arm, so we did need some of these. And as I say, they're pretty hard to find, it seems. So yeah, I think this, although not perfect, it's going to do a very good job. So here are the finished pieces. So we've got that one with the two little posts on it, this one with the X and the little post on it. So we can plug that one in to a bit of tube here. So the Lego piece should fit quite nicely in the tube, and then this should fit quite nicely on the X-ray device, which it does. So that's good, a nice snug fit there. And also we should be able to plug this into here and plug another tube into it to get a double tube length, which is one of the options listed in the instructions. So we got that. I can unplug that. If I bring in one of Steve Austin's arms and we'll roll up the skin, that should plug into the Bionic chip as well. So there we go, that does everything that we needed it to do, and it means that we can now get the set put together properly because we have a few of these. I probably need to make a few more of them. As I say, the original set came with 10 of the ones with the little X piece on it and 10 of the ones with just the two little posts on it, so I've got to make a few more if I want to get the complete set. The set comes with 4 of these plastic hinges, and the problem with these hinges is that over time that little bit of plastic in the middle will snap, because there's only so many times that you can sort of fold this plastic back and forth, and you'll end up with a lot of these sets having clips that look like this, which are snapped. Now we need to work out a way to repair this. I've tried repairing things before using tape, and it's not really a very good solution. So today I'm going to do it a different way and use felt. You can pick up felt from most fabric shops or sort of hobby shops. It's very cheap and you can get it in all sorts of different colours. I've got a blue, which is not a particularly close match, but it will do the job for the process that I want to show today. So what we're going to do is stick a piece of felt across this broken join here, but we need to prepare this plastic a bit because the plastic is very shiny. I don't know if you can see how shiny that is, and so if you stick super glue or any sort of glue, it's got no surface details to grip onto, so we actually need to make these surfaces quite rough. So all I'm going to do is take my knife here and I'm going to scratch into the surface lots and lots of little grooves. You can see I'll sort of scratch it up. You could do this with a knife or maybe even some sort of really coarse sandpaper or something, just to make it look quite rough. So you can see there's quite a lot of scratches going on there. I'll do a few more just for good measure. That will give the glue something to actually adhere to. Otherwise you've just got this shiny surface and there's nothing particularly for the glue to sort of stick into. So you want to do quite deep scratches on this, and from all angles and all directions, just to make it a nice rough surface that everything will stick to. Obviously the felt doesn't need that because the felt is fabric and the glue will soak into it quite nicely. So we're just going to do that on there. So we've now got both surfaces ready. So I've got a small piece of felt that should fit quite nicely on the top there. I'm going to get some super glue. This is just Loctite super glue. And I'll put a little bit on the top there. We can push this piece of felt on and we'll let it set. Then we can do the same on the other side. That's glued on quite nicely. Sometimes with super glue it's best to leave it for a little bit longer after you've actually put the glue on, just to make sure it's sort of firmly attached. So I'll do the same on this side. We can trim off any excess felt that sticks out the edge. I left it a little bit long just so I had a bit of leeway when I'm pushing this together. So we'll put that one on there. I'm going to let that now sort of fully cure for sort of 10 minutes. We'll trim off the felt and then we should have a nice usable hinge just with a little bit of felt on the top there, and I think it will do the job quite nicely. I've now made a second one as well, and we can do a little test on this spare transport set that I have here. So I'm going to clip one of these in at the back, like so. We'll clip the other one at the front there. And then this clips onto this side of the set. We clip that in there, and we'll clip that one in there, and there you go. We've now got a nicely working set. These aren't going to be as strong as the original, obviously, because it's just a piece of felt, but they certainly do the job. It's going to be ideal for displaying something like this, having these little bits of felt in place. I think you probably could do it with some plastic, but plastic will break again. The reason I'm doing it with felt is felt will last a long time if you do it like this. It will certainly fold and unfold quite nicely. Not going to be as strong as the original, certainly, but it will make this piece very displayable again. So I think that's my fix for these broken hinges, a piece of felt. It might be you can get some blue felt that is a closer match to the original, but as it stands, I had this one sort of in my tools box, or my sort of fabric box, so I think that will do the job. With the set I'm fixing, none of these clips are actually broken, so I can just go ahead and sort of reattach them together. It's fairly obvious which way round they go, so we just got to clip these sort of back into place, and they clip in just as easily as I showed you on the previous one. So just clip those two together there. That's that section back together, and then this other side goes on here. So again, just check I've got it around the right way. Yep, so those clips go in the top of that section, like so. And there we go, so that's those three pieces back together. Now what this needs is some stickers. As you can see, it's looking quite plain. It's lovely and clean, but it doesn't have any of the stickers on it. After a lot of searching, I have actually found a scan of the original stickers for this set. It needs a bit of work because it's not quite up to the standard I like when sort of printing things out. So let's take that into Photoshop. I'll tidy it all up, fix any issues. We can print that out and get the stickers put on the set. after over an hour's work, I've ended up with this, which is a nice version of the original stickers. This I've printed out onto glossy sticky backed paper. The original stickers are sort of midpoint between glossy and matte, but I quite like the sort of glossy finish. I think it sort of suits the style and the era of this toy. Now, the placement of these is going to be a little bit tricky. I did do a quick search online, and I found on Flickr someone has actually scanned in the sort of sticker placement, so I'm going to be using that to work out where these stickers go. I've put numbers on all of the stickers, which does match this file, so if you do a quick Google search for basically just search for a Bionic transport sticker sheet or Bionic transport instructions, and this image will come up, so use that as a guide. I'm going to cut all of these out by hand and then stick them onto the toy, and I think it will make quite a big difference, because at the moment it does look pretty plain, and always again adding stickers makes quite a big difference to these. So let's get cutting and then we'll get placing.
P-O-Y-P-O-L-L-O-I.
And there we go, there is the transport version of the Bionic transport and repair station. The stickers do add a great deal to it. Lots of little details all over the place. I think it really does make this look like a rocket. And as I said at the start, a sort of Saturn V rocket, which is why I think as a child I wanted to play with it so much. But now let's convert this into the repair station and see how that looks. Now in repair station mode, there are a whole load of extra pieces that we need to attach to this. As you can see, I have them here in front of me. So let's work through the process of turning this into the repair station. First thing we have to do is remove the nose cone and the booster rockets at the bottom. So just pull those off. Then we can open up the set. So we'll leave Steve Austin in place just for the moment. I think we might have to remove him because he will get in the way a little bit as we're adding all of these pieces. At the moment the set looks a bit odd because it sort of rests strangely on the ground. There are these things which are feet which we have to attach to the bottom of the playset, and that will sort of level everything up. So let's move a few more pieces out of the way. I think I will get rid of Steve Austin because he's just a bit annoying at the moment, and we'll get this set up and then we can put him back in place. So if we turn this over, on the back of the set you can see there are quite a few little holes, and that's where these feet have to be plugged in. So we'll plug those in at the far end of this set. So we've got two there. Then we need to do a few more on this side to sort of stabilise this part of the set. And I guess we have to put a few in the middle here as well. So there's 6 in total. Then when we put this set over, they all started falling out. Let's push those ones back in. They're not particularly a tight fit, but it should stabilise the set. One of them's fallen out again. Where did that one go? Here it is. So let's put that one in. Oh, they're all falling out. There we go. I think that's better. So now we've managed to stabilise the set, so it actually looks a bit more like a sort of, a repair station. Then we can start adding things like the radar dish here, which plugs into the little hole here on the side. So you've got this tiny little L-shaped piece that hooks into there, like that. And then you put that into the little hole there. And then by turning or pushing this little knob here, you can see it sort of turns the radar dish, but all of this stuff is a bit loose and a bit floppy. So you can see it does work. It is a sort of radar dish, but it does fall out. We then need to add the sort of X-ray unit for which this sort of bent bar is used, and we use the booster section of the rockets. There's a little hole in the bottom of that, so we can attach that there, and then this sits over where Steve Austin sits. It's supposed to be sort of an X-ray unit or something like that, some sort of scanner anyway that can scan his body. We now need to actually add the X-ray unit, which we'll add onto the back of this, so I'll just turn the set around again. So this is the X-ray unit. As you can see, there's a little dial here, and you can turn it around to view different sort of X-rays of Steve Austin. This piece does glow in the dark, and this piece I've not added any replacement stickers to. These are original stickers that are in reasonable condition. Now this sits over this section here, and there are these two little brackets that hold it in place, so we have to plug those into the bottom of the X-ray unit like so, and then these plug into the two holes on this side of the set like that. So that X-ray unit sits there, and then that's where all of these tubes come into play, because you can now sort of start messing around and plug the tubes into the X-ray unit like so, and then plug them into the sort of scanner X-ray piece over here into all the various holes, and just sort of wire it up as you want. I'm also going to add one to wire into Steve Austin's arm, so let me do that and I'll show you the finished set. And so Steve is now in the Bionic repair station getting his arm fixed. The whole set actually does have a lot of things to play with. It's a little bit fiddly because some pieces do fall out, the legs don't hold in particularly well, and some of the other pieces are a bit loose and floppy, but the overall idea of it is pretty good, and for a toy of its day I actually think it's really quite a remarkable playset. There's a lot of little features on it, and it would have certainly kept a child occupied for a very long time. I know it did with me, and it's been a great set to sort of work on and repair. I'm really pleased with how this looks. Giving it a good clean, mending a few parts, and making some replacement parts is all part of the fun, and I've ended up with a set that is now really very displayable, and I'm certainly going to put this on display with the rest of my $6 Million Man toys. I think though I'm going to have it in the transport mode, as it looks like the rocket, and that's a lot easier to display. This takes up quite a lot of space like this, but it is very nice nonetheless. Now I do need to say a massive thank you to Alan, who very kindly sent me the original sort of remains of the Bionic transport and repair station for me to fix up, and I also need to say a massive thank you to Lawrence from Toy Planet UK, who very kindly helped me out with all the missing pieces that I needed for this. If you haven't checked out his Facebook page, please do. He sells all sorts of vintage toys and is an incredibly helpful guy and helps me out with a lot of projects, so I'll put a link to his Facebook group in the description of this video, so do go and check that out. If you've enjoyed this video, then why not check out some of my other restoration projects. I've recently done a revisited restoration on the original $6 Million Man doll, so do check that out. And if you've enjoyed this video, then make sure to hit the subscribe button and tap the bell to be notified each time I upload a new video. And thanks for watching.
Thanks for watching toy-polloi. Subscribe for more great videos. You can also follow toy-polloi on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram.